All right, we have another set launching on Arena here in about a week and a half. Battle for Baldur's Gate, Commander Legends, Alchemy Horizons 2, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Adventures in the Forgotten Realm, I think is the full title. I have no idea. But I think it's actually called Alchemy Horizons Battle for Baldur's Gate on Arena. But that's going to be launching here in about a week and a half on July 8th. So there are some new mechanics that we'll have to walk through. So the specialized cards are the six-sided cards that you might have seen. They all have this little specialized text on there. And what that is, if you pay the specialized mana cost, plus discard a land or a spell of a particular color, you can flip it. So if I have a green spell or a forest in my hand, I can pay 5 and then flip this into Imoen Wise Trickster, which is better usually, or in almost all cases. And then there's also one for each color. So Imoen is blue, but if I discard a blue card, I get the double blue version. A white card, I get a white blue, green blue, red blue, and black blue. So up next is Double Team. So Double Team combines a couple different mechanics here. So what that is when you attack with a creature with Double Team, you conjure a duplicate into your hand. So conjuring a duplicate means it just appears in your hand, and it is a duplicate card. It's not a token. So you have to cast that from your hand. It can go to the graveyard after you cast it. If it gets killed, you can recur it from the graveyard. But all the Double Team creatures will do that. And last up, I couldn't find a rare or a mythic for this one, but Boon is like a single-use emblem. So when you cast Valiant Farewell, you get a boon that says when you cast your next creature spell, it perpetually or forever gets +2/+0. So if you cast a 2/2 after that, it becomes a 4/2, and then you lose your boon. It just works for the next one. So one-time use, but the emblem or boon sits outside the game state, so you can't affect it. Up next, we have some returning mechanics. There's a little gate theme here on some cards. Those were popularized on Ravnica sets, and I think War of the Spark might have had some as well. Adventure is coming back from Eldraine, one of my favorite mechanics. Really love this one. And adventure cards are typically very powerful. They're kind of two-sided creatures, but one side is an instant or sorcery spell that you can cast, and then when you do that, your adventure creature goes into the exile zone, and then you can cast your adventure creature for its mana cost. Last up, there's a ton of dragons in this set. Not all of them are huge flyers, but there's some smaller ones as well, and 3 color pairs care about dragons between green, blue, and red. Alchemy stuff, so we'll need to know that as well. This is an alchemy set, so we're going to see things like Seek, Spellbook, Perpetually, and Conjure. Duplicate as well, but Seek means that the computer will look through your deck and give you 2 random cards of whatever type. Usually it's Seek 2 land cards or Seek 2 non-land cards. Spellbook, like in this rare here, you will be able to conjure a card from its spellbook, where you will draft one of 3 random cards that are in this creature spellbook. Usually there's like 10 to 15 random cards that you can get. And then we have Perpetually, which means forever. So even if a creature goes into the graveyard and gets recurred, it still has that perpetual whatever happened to it. And then Conjures, where you manifest something into your hand. It's just a card. It's not a token, but an actual card that comes into being. All right, on to the colors. So in white, some of the specialized stuff is very powerful. I think we should be picking these quite early if you see them. So Rasad here, it's a 3-mana 2/2, and it exiles a creature an opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield, which is just good on its own. But you can specialize, turn it into a 4/4, and then if Rasad dies, their creature's still pretty much useless, because obviously Rasad's going to have a pretty big target on its back if they can get their creature back. Next up is some big beats. I think Morden's Disciples is kind of a diamond in the rough here. It's a little bit expensive for what you're getting. 4 mana for a 2/3 that taps a creature defending player controls. But if you can double team it and get that second copy out, you're tapping down their 2 biggest blockers and enabling your team to get through. So I think that's a very powerful effect. Up next, we have Sea Tower Imprisonment. And this is just a 2-for-1 or kind of a 3-for-1 even. So it's an arrest variant. You're paying 1 extra mana for that arrest. Enchanted permanent can't attack or block. Its activated abilities can't be activated. You can also cast that on a planeswalker as well. Your bonus is you get to conjure or create card named Soldiers of the Watch onto the battlefield, which is a 2/1 double team. So it's two 2/1s if you can attack with the first copy. Sometimes it's just a road bump or speed bump. That's still a very nice 2-for-1 in white. Top comments. So you're going to see a lot of Adventures in Forgotten Realms reprints here. And first up, I think Priest of Ancient Lore is very good. It's still very good, even without the flying. So it's no Inspiring Overseer, but it's still very strong. And there is a very strong blink theme in this set, especially in white and blue. So you're going to be able to blink this card, gain a bunch of life, draw a bunch of cards. Up next, another classic from AFR and just from white in general is a 2/2 lifelinker for 2. Super strong. One of the things that brings this card a little bit down in my mind is that there's not very good equipment, but there are some good tricks for this thing. And there's a life game theme in the white-green archetype. Lastly, I have Blessed Hippogriff. I think this card is just super versatile. It's a 4-mana 2/3 flyer, which isn't great, but it does jump a flying creature whenever it attacks, so it can enable your lifelinkers to get in, creatures that couldn't attack to get in, and it has the instant Adventure of Tyr's Blessing, or Tyr's Blessing, where you can give a creature indestructible until end of turn. Save one of your creatures from removal or win combat, and it's only a single white mana. Up next, we have blue. Blue in AFR was atrocious. Well, let's see if blue is any better. All right, for Specialized, I chose a Laura Rogue Companion, and what this is whenever you attack, one attacking creature can't be blocked. I think that's quite strong, especially if you compare it with ETB effects, because you return that creature to its owner's hand at the beginning of your next end step. If you flip it, it gets a little bit better. A creature of your choice your opponent controls perpetually gets -1/-0, and this becomes a 4/3, so it can get quite annoying quite fast and disable your opponent's ability to attack you, if you can get the time to do that. So in a long, grindy game, this card's going to win. Up next is Adventure. There's a stronger adventure theme in blue, and Sword Coast Serpent might not look great. It's 7 mana for a 6/6, which is really it's hard to get to. If the format is slow, it might have some potential, but what saves this is the bounce effect on the adventure side of it. Return a creature to its owner's hand for 2 mana, instant speed. Great trick, good to avoid opponent removal, bounce a token, stuff like that. Just very versatile. And then late game, it can just win. It can't be blocked if you cast a non-creature spell this turn. 6 damage, unblockable, is pretty good. There's also a strong dragon theme. I think Juvenile Mist Dragon, 5 mana 4/3 flyer, is super strong. When it ETBs, you Frostlinks a creature down. So you tap creature player controls, and it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So that enables attacks, shuts down your opponent's annoying creatures, and it does it for two turns. For the top commons, first up, I have Young Blue Dragon, another dragon with adventure. Pretty simple one. 2 mana, scry 1, draw a card, and then a 3/3 flyer for 5. Not great on either side, but you add them together and you get a pretty versatile creature, especially in a color that cares about dragons. Next up, I have Charmed Sleep. This is back from AFR. It's just a solid removal spell for 3 mana. Makes a creature tap down a creature. That's fine. With the Blink theme in this set, I don't think it's as strong, but there's not a lot of great commons in blue that I've seen. Last up, we have Soul Knife Spy, another returning creature from AFR. I think with the added emphasis on unblockable stuff in blue in particular, this card might be a little bit better. There's also a lot of ways to give creatures flying as well. All right, moving on to black. For this specialized creature, I chose Saravok Usurper, 4 mana 3/3. At the beginning of your turn, target creature you control gets +X+0, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. As you can guess, there's a strong sacrifice and self-mill theme in black, so you usually end up with quite a few creatures in the yard. And when you flip it, you can conjure, or you can seek a creature card, so it takes a random creature card from your deck, puts it in the yard, and then you get 2 duplicates of it. So that gets your creature, whatever target creature, an extra +3/+0 till end of turn. So this card is super annoying on the battlefield, and it just enables all your creatures to get in and attack. Even your cheap ones end up trading way up. So if you're aggressive, I think this card is quite good. Next up, Skullport Merchant, one of the best uncommons in AFR, is back. Something to note. And then the treasure theme in red-black is back as well. Lastly, we have Bone Color Cleric. I think this is very good. It's a 2-1 for 2, which is fine. You just play it out. If it's late game, you can get your best thing back and put it right onto the battlefield. It doesn't go back to your hand. So I think this card is quite good. Good early, good late. Exactly what you're looking for in a 2-drop. For the top commons, first up is Grim Bounty coming back from AFR. It was great in AFR. It's going to be great in this set as well. Sewer Plague, this is a new one, and this is an instant speed, 3 mana, creature an opponent controls perpetually gets -2/-2, and at the beginning of each upkeep, it perpetually gets -1/-1 until it goes to the yard, and then I don't think it gets affected anymore, but it still keeps those perpetual -1/-1 counters on it. Lastly, we have Deadly Dispute, another returning card, but 2 mana, instant speed, draw card. Tons of sacrifice synergies, tons of treasure synergies with this, just very strong. All right, moving right along to red here for Specialized, I have Gut, Fanatical Priestess. This is kind of an interesting one, very expensive, but if you can get the mana, it's super worth it. 6 mana for a 4/3. When it ETBs, one creature you control fights a creature you don't. And then if the creature you don't control wins or trades for your opponent's creature, it gets exiled. And when you flip Gut, you get that creature back, right? So you create a token that's a copy of it. And then in this case, in this specialization, it gets double strike and haste. So it can get super lethal, super out of hand very quickly. You do sacrifice that creature at the beginning of the next end step, but there's lots of sacrifice synergies too. Next up, I have a double teamer. I think this one is super strong. Red is obviously going to be very aggressive here. Knoll Hunting Party. If you can attack with 2 creatures on turn 4, you can cast this, and it's a 4/4 first strike on your turn with double team, and a 4/4 first striker for 4 that conjures another copy of itself into your hand is quite good. Lastly, I don't even know why they reprinted this thing. Battlecry Goblin was probably the best uncommon in AFR, but it is back. It's a 2/2 for 2. It has Pack Tactics, which is going to be much easier to get, I think, because of Double Team. And when it does have Pack Tactics and it attacks, you get 1/1 goblins, and then it can pump all the goblins on your team as well. All right, top commons. Returning is Dragon's Fire. It's just your basic deal 3. Sometimes you get the added bonus of revealing a dragon card to deal more damage, but 2 mana instant speed, deal 3 is just fine. And returning again is Hobgoblin Captain. 2 mana, 3/1 with Pack Tactics to give it first strike. Super strong, super aggressive. Great card. Lastly, we have Young Red Dragon. 4 mana, 3/2 flyer, but it can't block. I don't think red is too interested in blocking anyway. And then you can also create a treasure token at instant speed for 2 mana. And there's tons of synergies there as well with between dragons, treasure, and then going on offense with Pack Tactics. So last up, we have green. For Specialized, I chose Skanos, Dragon Vassal, 5 mana 4/4, Specialized 4. When it attacks another creature, it gets +X/+0, where X is Skanos' power. This can get out of hand really quick. Giving a flyer +4/+0 is pretty crazy, and green does get flyers in this set. And if you flip it, it becomes a 6/6 Vigilance that untaps another attacking creature, and then it gives +6/+0 to that creature. So I think Skanos is actually quite strong if you can get in just one attack with it. Lastly, we got a Buff Boy. This is one of those big flying dragons I was talking about. 3 mana, instant adventure as well on there to counter an activated or triggered ability from a non-creature source. There's lots of this running around, lots of artifacts, stuff like enchantments, or even Prophetic Prism is in the set. So when it ETBs, you draw a card and you can counter that so your opponent doesn't get the card. And on the back end of it, you get a 6 mana 4/4 flying trample, which pairs very well with Skanos as well. Lastly, we have some Dragon Recursion. Draconic Muralist is a 4-mana Dragon Bard for a 4/3. When it dies, you can go grab a dragon, put it into your hand. That's just great value on a creature that you don't mind trading. For the top commons, Underseller Myconiid. This is a new one. I really like this card. We'll see how well it works, but I think it looks pretty good to stave off an aggressive start from an opponent. It is 3 mana for a 1/2, but you do get a 1/1 Sapperling when it ETBs, and it ramps you, so you can play a 5-drop the next turn. And when it dies, you also get another 1/1. So I think this card is going to be good. It's going to allow splashes. It will ramp you. It provides cannon fodder. So I think this one's good. I'm going to speculate on it. Up next, returning is Owlbear, which is pretty close, I think. It's a 5-mana, 4/4 trampler that draws you a card. Pretty simple, pretty good, but going from Underseller Myconiid into Owlbear, I think it's a pretty big game. Lastly, we have Knoll Hunter returning, 2-mana Pack Tactics creature, and when you do attack with Pack Tactics, it gets a 1/1 counter. All right, for colorless cards, there's lots of good fixing. There's Prophetic Prism and Pilgrim's Eye at common here. So I think you will be able to splash around if the format is slow enough, which I don't know if it's going to be. White, red look really aggressive. I think black-red can be aggressive. I think green-red can be aggressive. So we'll just have to see. Next up, more ramp. So Bronze Walrus, another creature that can fix for you, but it also ramps you. And then you scry 2 when it ETBs. And then a good ramp target and a good blink target, if you're in white-blue, is Meteor Golem, a classic creature returning 7 mana for a 3/3, but when it ETBs, you get to destroy a non-land permanent an opponent controls. On my preliminary color rankings, I'm going to start with red, because it got back some of its best commons and uncommons from AFR. Looking at Battlecry Goblin and Hobgoblin Captain, Dragon's Fire, and then it has some good double-team creatures as well. Next up is black. That got a lot of its good cards back from AFR as well. Grim Bounty, Deadly Dispute, Skullport Merchant, Sepulchre Ghoul has Shambling Geist is back. So I think it has a lot of good aggressive creatures in there. White, decent 2-for-1 potential here. We went over the Arrest variant there, but there's also double team creatures in here as well. Next up is green. So beyond I think green is kind of a tale of two stories here, where you have ramp, you have big dopes, but then you also have cards like Knoll Hunter, which maybe seem to be a little bit more for an aggressive strategy. We'll see which side of green is better here. And then lastly, blue. I honestly don't know what the heck they're doing. It seems terrible at uncommon. The best common in blue that I saw was a 5-mana 3/3 flyer that had adventure for 2 to allow you to scry 1 and draw a card. It's really, really dire. In the Commander Legends, the paper version of this set, they had a Mana War in there, and they had a couple other good, cheaper creatures. But they took them out for like no reason. And I just don't know what I'm doing on turn 2 with blue. So we'll see how it plays out. Again, this is first impressions. We'll see how things go. All right, into the archetypes. So Azorius, white-blue, wants you to blink, and things you want to focus on are enter the battlefield, leave battlefield effects, stuff like that. And the signpost in common is OG. 4 mana for a 2/3. When it ETBs, you gain 2 and scry 2. And whenever you cast your second spell, so there's also a cast 2 spells a turn minor theme here. But when you do that, you blink a creature. And it can blink itself if you want to gain 2 more life and scry 2. Lulu, Forgotten Holophant, I think is also quite good because you do want card velocity if you're going to be casting those that second card, right? So Lulu is a 1/3 flyer for 3 with specialized 2. When it ETBs, you get a boon with when you cast your next creature spell without flying. It perpetually gains flying, which is awesome already. But when you specialize it, which is a cheap specialization cost, you get a 2/4 flyer. Whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures with flying, draw that many cards, then discard a card. So you can draw some cards if you attack with Lulu, and the other thing that got perpetual flying here. Draw 2, discard 1, discard your land or whatever, play your second spell, blink a thing. It can get really out of hand. We'll just have to see if there's time enough to set this up. Lastly, here for the signposts, I have Seek New Knowledge. So 2 mana instant speed, seek 2 non-land cards, so you're guaranteed to get 2 spells here, which is what makes this card good. And then you just put a land or whatever on the bottom of your library. Not a big deal. All right. Some of the supporting creatures, I have Pegasus Guardian. You'll see this one in a few places because I think this fits in a lot of stuff. But it has the 2 mana adventure to blink a thing. And of course, that's obviously going to work very well with cards like Priest of Ancient Lore and stuff like that. But it's also a 6 mana 3/3 flyer. And if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn at the beginning of your end step, you make a 1/1 white Pegasus creature token with flying. So that means not only does it work with creatures you've blinked, but also creatures that die. And it does it. It can do it multiple times. So really good, really versatile. Priest of Ancient Lore, as we said, super good to blink. And then Air Cult Elemental. This is super expensive, but if you can blink it, you can keep bouncing stuff, and that can be pretty out of hand as well. All right, up next we have Selesnya. They kind of just hijacked this archetype and reverted it back to AFR, which is more of a life gain / go wide thing. So they brought back Trelasara, 2 mana 2/2. When you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on it and scry 1. Like peanut butter and jelly, that goes well with Priest of Ancient Lore, a deadly 2/3 curve. But also, it goes well with the white-green version of Skanos. Because Skanos would then give another target attacking creature lifelink and +X/+0, and then Skanos himself, or herself, their self, would also have lifelink. A pretty decent combo there. There is some support here that you're going to see. Celestial Unicorn, of course, is back from AFR. Steadfast Paladin that we already talked about. It's a great 2/3 combo as well. Steadfast Paladin on turn 2. Cast Celestial Unicorn and then swing with your 2/2 lifelinker to make it a 4/3. And then also coming back is Prosperous Innkeeper, which is kind of busted with Trelasara and Celestial Unicorn as well. All right, on to ORZHOV. This card, I don't even know how to start explaining this thing. This card's crazy. 2/4 for 4 with intensity 0. Creatures you can control get +X/+0, where X is Minthara's intensity. Whenever one or more permanents you control leave the battlefield, so not just creatures that die, but also creatures that are blinked, you perpetually increase the intensity by Minthara by 1. And yeah, this ability triggers only once each turn. So if you do it once, it's a 3/4, and then it gives all your other creatures +1/+0, and so on and so forth. So this can get out of control if you can support it. Talked about Pegasus Guardian. This is kind of a perfect creature to pair with it because those 1/1 white Pegasus creature tokens with flying start to become really, really good if you can get a couple intensity counters on them. And then we also have another specialist here, Viconia. So if you're having a bunch of creatures die and leave the battlefield, you should fill up your graveyard. There's also a strong sacrifice theme in white-black. So what Viconia does, it's a 2 mana 2/3, which is already fine. And then you can exile a card from a graveyard, including your opponent's, and has specialize of 2. When you flip it, you conjure a duplicate of one of the creature cards exiled with it, and then you can cast that creature card. So this works well if creatures are dying, which they should be if you're in white-black. And it's also just a nice body and some good recursion as well. All right, more leave the battlefield synergy. 2/1 flyer for 3 is fine. Not great, but if you can do the thing and scry a few cards, this becomes very good. We also have a Rescuer Chwinga, 2 mana 2/2 flash, so it's a good little combat trick too, but it also saves one of your creatures from removal. It counts as a leave trigger, just a fine card overall. And then if you have that sacrifice thing going, Hookor. I think this card is a little bit too clunky to play, but it might find a space there. It's a 5-mana 3/3, which is not good. But when it dies, it perpetually gets -1/-1, and then it returns back to the battlefield. So you can kill it 3 times, right? So it becomes a 3/3, dies, is a 2/2, then comes back, dies, is a 1/1, then comes back, dies. And then if you can find a way to perpetually buff it, then it will stick around for a little bit longer. On to Boros. This is the double team theme. Very mana intensive because you do have to cast that that copy, but I think the payoff is pretty worth it. So Liara of the Flaming Fist is a 2-mana 2/2. At the beginning of each combat, each creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn if it has the same name as another creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard. So the double team thing obviously conjures a duplicate, so you should have a few of these if you have double team creatures. And then you can only do this once per game per Liara you have, but you can give another non-token creature you control first strike and double team until the end of the turn, which is really, really strong. Putting that on like a Priest of Ancient Lore or something is really good. We talked about Moradin's Disciples before, but making these into 3/4s is super strong as well with the double team. And Ambergris, I really like this card actually. So it's a 3-mana 3/2 haste. Specialize of 3. When it attacks, you may discard your hand and draw 2 cards. So that's fine in the late game. Like if you don't have any cards in your hand, you can just swing, throw this thing away, and draw 2. It's like a little divination, right? But when you flip it, when you do that, if you discard your hand, if you do, other creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards you discarded this turn. So if you know you have this and you have a few cards in your hand, you can turn this into a little mini overrun, which is super strong, of course. So I really like that a lot for kind of a go-wide double team strategy for like a big alpha strike. All right, supporting stuff. We talked about Valiant Farewell as well, but I do think this is a great trick. Helps your double team creature get through, and then it also gives the duplicate that's conjured back into your hand +2/+0 when you cast it as well, and you draw a card. What's not to love? Also, we talked about Blessed Hippogriff. These help your double team creatures get in as well by giving them flying, by having a trick to make them indestructible so they can trade or trade up, or not trade. Not trade is what you want to do. And then lastly, we have Knoll Hunting Party. We talked about this one as well. This is, I think, is just a super strong double teamer. And since you're going to be attacking with multiple things a turn, it can be really cheap too. All right. Dimir, this is another one that was kind of lifted from AFR and dropped here because they removed a mechanic called Initiative from this set for Alchemy. So they brought back Cridle of Baldur's Gate. This is a 2-mana 1/3. When it deals damage to a player, that player loses a life, mills a card, you gain a life, you scry 1, and whenever you attack, you may pay 2. If you do, target creature can't be blocked this turn. So this is the on-hit triggers and unblockable themed thing. Allura Rogue Companion is one that I wanted to bring up. This is the can't be blocked specialist legendary creature. It's a 3/2 for 4, which isn't good. Whenever you attack, one target attacking creature can't be blocked. At the beginning of an end step, return that creature to its owner's hand. So this is good with creatures that have on-hit triggers or ETB effects. And then it makes a creature of yours just unblockable, which is fine too. All right. And if you flip it, also another thing is you want to have creatures that your opponent just doesn't want to block. So Guildsworn Prowler is a perfect one. You don't care even if it trades for a 1/1 because you get to draw a card. So a 2/1 Death Touch for 2, just fine. You can equip some stuff to it. And then you can use it with a Lord to make your opponent lose an extra 2 life. So there's lots of different things you can do with a Guildsworn Prowler as well for the unblockable and on-hit trigger stuff. Of course, Soul Knife Spy is going to be huge in this set. Deals 3, draws you a card for a 3-mana 3/2 body. Water Weird is kind of an interesting one. I don't know how feasible this is. It's kind of expensive. 4 mana for a 3/4, but when it deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on it if the top card of your library is a non-land card. Otherwise, you may mill a card. So if it's a land, you can mill the land because you're probably not going to need it. And if the top card is a non-land, you're going to want to keep it, and you get a little counter. Lastly, we have Thieves' Tools returning. Makes your creature unblockable as long as its power is 3 or less. Of course, this is perfect with Soul Knife Spy. We'll just have to see if the format is slow enough to allow this type of thing. Up next, this is a really interesting archetype. I'm really looking forward to this one. So this is Dragons and Adventure Matters. I really like the Signpost uncommon here. It's a 4/2 flyer for 5. Whenever you cast an adventure or dragon spell, Lozan deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to any target that isn't a commander. So any creature goes to the player's face. It pays you off for casting big adventure and big dragon spells, like Sword Coast Serpent. So when you cast the instant, it deals 2 damage to any target. It shocks it, and then you still get to bounce a thing. And if you can cast Sword Coast Serpent itself, it deals 7 damage to any target. It can go straight to your opponent's face. Something like Red Dragon. If you go to your opponent's face when you cast this, it deals 6 to them. The ETB effect on the dragon deals 4, so they just take 10. I think this is pretty insane if you can keep your Lozan alive. All right, some other things that work well with it. Just any big dragon like Juvenile Mist Dragon. I think this card is great. 5 mana, so deals 5 to any target. 4/3 flyer, and it Frost Links, it taps something down. Young Blue Dragon, you get both sides. You get the adventure for 2. The dragon itself costs 5. Great stuff. And then same thing, Young Red Dragon here, 4 mana. This can't block, which might be an issue with this archetype in particular, because it does seem a little bit slow. But if you can get the pieces working, I think it's still good. Also, the treasure token would just ramp you. On to the next one. Green is more dragons. Of course, green has strong ramp in this set, like it does in almost every set. There's also some big bodies here. So Corlessa Scale Singer is a 2 mana 1/4, which actually kind of pays you off for having cheaper dragon spells. So you can just rip a bunch of them off the top, right? So you can, that's pretty good. Draconic Lore, I couldn't really find a spot for this, but I did want to talk about this. If you have a dragon in play, it's a 4 mana draw 3 card at instant speed, which is fine. That's just fine. I would say you're going to want between 8 to 10 different dragons in your set to really include this. Maybe you could do it with us. Maybe like 6. You could probably pull this off if you had like 6 different dragons that were on the cheaper side in your deck. Skanos is a dragon, so that's something to note. And he's also a buff boy. So you can buff your dragons when they attack. You're in blue, so you'll have access to some flyers. And then on the flip side of Skanos, another target attacking creature gets flying and +X+0. So that's huge. So you can buff your owlbear, make it flying, a flying 8/4 when you're attacking. One attack with this thing is pretty big game. Of course, Skanos has flying itself, so that's super strong as well. On to some of the synergy pieces. Draconic Muralist. Talked about this one before, but it is a dragon card that recurs your other dragons. When it doesn't recur your dragons, but when it dies, you get to search up a dragon, put it into your hand, and shuffle. Looter, some of those cheaper dragons, right? Draw a card, discard a card. It's a looter, it's a cheap looter, but it's still something that you can rip off the top of your library and just play multiple spells on a turn. Get that velocity, right? Same thing with Skilled Nurture. It's a 2 mana dork. There is a minor bonus when you cast a dragon spell. You get 2 life, but that might be helpful in a racing situation as well. It's just another one of those things where you're paid off by having your signpost in common on being able to rip multiple spells. Next up, Rakdos. So Treasure Matters and Sacrifices back. They brought back Kalane. This was by far the most powerful archetype in the last set, or in AFR. We'll see how it does again. I think it's going to be super strong. But Kalane's a 1/2 for 2. When it ETBs, you make a treasure token, and then other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on them for each mana from a treasure spent to cast them. Skullport Merchant is back. 3 mana 1/4. When it ETBs, make a treasure token, sack a creature or a treasure, draw a card. And we also have Swashbuckler Extraordinaire, which seems interesting to me. It's a dragon, cheap one. 3 mana 2/2. When it ETBs, you make a treasure. And whenever you attack, you may sacrifice 1 or more treasures. When you do, up to that many target creatures gain double strike. till end of turn. So you can enable some massive attacks with this thing. Synergy. Sepulchre Ghoul is back. Sacrifice synergies, obviously, here. They did buff it, which I don't think they needed to do. It was a 2/1, now it's a 2/2, so it becomes a 4/4 at instant speed by sacking a creature. Crazy. You have Deadly Dispute back, which is amazing, of course. One of the best commons in the set last time. I think it's going to be a great common this time. And they also brought back common threaten effects to sacrifice synergies, Incessant Provocation. 4 mana, gain control of a creature. It just looks like Black-Red's going to be really, really good this set. All right. Now we're into Golgari. Guess what? Graveyard Recursion. Are we surprised anymore? But here we go. Everyone loves a little recursion, right? 4 mana for a 1/4 for Kaga. Whenever it attacks, it gains Death Touch and you mill 2. And during each one of your turns, you may play a land or cast a permanent spell from among the cards in your yard that were put there from your library this turn. So it works good with self-mill strategies. But it does have to attack to enable it itself to mill. And a 1/4 Death Toucher is probably not the greatest. Because if it just had Death Touch and it could block, I think this card would be a lot better, but 4 mana for a 1/4 Death Touchers is not a good rate. Viconia. So if you're going to be self-milling, exiling cards with Viconia is going to be really good for you, because on the other side of it, when you specialize, you can conjure a duplicate of a target creature card exiled into your hand, and it gets +2/+2 perpetually, so it becomes a little bit beefier. And then we also have Split the Spoils. I'm interested in this. I don't think this card is going to be too great, but you can exile up to 5 target permanent cards from your graveyard that you choose. Your opponent separates those into 2 piles, and then you get to pick one. So your opponents, you know that they're going to be spells that you want, as long as you have enough. And then your opponent has to put them into 2 piles. You get to draw 2 cards or 3 cards. So I think that's pretty good for 3 mana, but we'll have to see. It takes a lot to set it up, I think. All right, Bonecaller Cleric, talked about this one. Just a great recursive 2-drop. If you're going to be self-milling, works really well. Same thing with Summon Undead here. You mill 3, you may mill 3, and then you get a creature card from your yard back to the battlefield for 5 mana. And then lastly, Druidic Ritual. You may mill 3, and then you get a creature card and up to 1 land card from your graveyard to your hand for 3 mana. So that's not bad as well. On to our last archetype in Gruul. So this is Power Matters, big dragons, big buff boys, starting with Thrakkus the Butcher. So 5 mana, 3/4 Trampler. When it attacks, double the power of each dragon you control until end of turn. So this, you want to try to set it up with some Tramplers. Flying dragons, of course. A lot of dragons fly, so you can get like 1 big alpha strike in. Dragonboard Immolator is a good one. 4 mana for a 2/4. That's not great, but it pumps itself. It has 1 and a red to give it +1/+0. And when it dies, you get a boon. So that 1-use emblem. When you cast your next creature spell, it perpetually gets +X/+0, where X is the noted number. So if you pump it twice, your next creature gets +4/+0, which is a pretty big game. Skanos is back. I think this card is pretty strong in an aggressive strategies. It is a bit expensive, but we'll have to see. On the flip side, and Skanos, of course, is a dragon that doubles, gives plus power. It's a 5/5 first striker, which is like impossible to block. And then another target attacking creature gets first strike and +X/+0. So if you give that to your Thrakkus the Butcher, it becomes a first strike trample. I don't even know, 16/4, because you give it +5, so it becomes an 8/4. First strike trample, then a double that, and then it becomes, so that's a 16/4, and then Skanos would be a 10/5 first strike. Just insane if you can get an attack off with both those creatures. Other stuff, just big, dopey flying tramplers, right? Emerald Dragon would attack as an 8/4 flying trample if you had your Thrakkus in play. Young Red Dragon, I think this is the perfect archetype for it, because you want to be attacking, you want to be the beatdown, and this would attack as a 6/2 flyer, which is massive. And then last we have Dread Linorm. This is pretty expensive, very clunky, but I think this is the one archetype where the adventure side kind of makes sense, right? So it's 4 mana for an instant speed adventure. Put 2/1/1 counters on target creature and untap it. It gains hexproof, so it can save your Thrakkus to set you up for that big Alpha Strike the next turn. All right, that's what I got for you. Let me know your thoughts. We'll see how the set does. I'm excited to get some new stuff some new cards to play with.